Hey, welcome to Mind Your Own Biz, the podcast where we help small business owners with big dreams build something authentically you. I'm Alicia Yervis, educator, marketer, designer, nacho enthusiast, and your big sister in business. I'm excited for us to have this cozy spot to chat. Each episode, we'll tackle candid conversations, actionable tips, and a few fun tangents to help you run your business your way. Because business is always personal, no matter what anyone says. So grab your iced coffee or those nachos and let's get started. Hi there, and welcome back to Mind Your Own Biz. My name's Alicia Yervis. I am your host, and I'm really glad you're here with me today. How's your week going? Because personally, I've been thinking a lot about how sensitive this whole business thing can feel sometimes, not necessarily in a bad way, but just how much like feeling and overwhelm and self-doubt can come with the territory of like just putting ourselves out there. So whether it's marketing, launching something new, or just showing up, like how I'm showing up here on camera and on audio to film this podcast, also showing up in email or on social media, it can feel like a lot, and we already all have a lot going on. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. But before we get into that, I want to share two things with you that I think pair really nicely with this conversation. So first, if you've been caught in that spiral of just negative self-talk, that bitchy imposter syndrome that's in your ear, right? Or you're just feeling like you need a boost of encouragement. I made something fun and free, just for you. It's called Make Your Own Mantra, and it's free. It's a set of Canva templates that you could totally customize, and post. And so whether you're trying to hit a goal or start a new routine, or just want to feel like, your own hype woman again, these templates will help you write your own damn script, literally. So head to aliciayervis.com/mantra to grab yours. They're free. They're just a fun thing. And second, if your brain feels like the internet browser with 87 tabs open, like I know mine does, literally, I'm looking at it right now on my computer. And you could really use someone to help you sort through it all, I would love to invite you to book an Empower Hour session with me. This is my one-to-one Zoom session where you and I can talk about your marketing, your branding, your offers, maybe visibility fears, basically any obstacles, anything that's got you stuck or making you feel like you can't take action, you can't move forward. You're going to leave this session with clarity, with a plan or next steps, and a whole lot less pressure. And plus, you're going to get a full recording afterwards, so you don't have to scribble notes like a maniac. So you can use promo code podcast at checkout to save $25 on your session. So just go to aliciayervis.com/empower hour. And you can grab the free mantra templates and the Empower Hour link in the show notes for this episode as well. So be sure to head over there. So shifting gears, let's get into this. Today, I'm chatting with the lovely Nina Müller, a certified mindfulness coach, writer, and the founder of the Mindful Practice. Nina helps highly sensitive women navigate life transition with more clarity and self-compassion. And she's just one of those people who brings the calm with her wherever she goes. We're going to be talking about what mindfulness really means, how to move through change without burning out, and how sensitivity, especially as a business owner, isn't something to hide. It's actually a gift. So let's get into it. For years, Nina believed sensitivity was something to apologize for until she discovered it was her greatest gift. Growing up as a highly sensitive child in Switzerland, she learned early how to navigate a world that often felt overwhelming. Her journey led her to meditation, Buddhist teachings, and a master's in Buddhist studies, where she uncovered a vital truth. Mindfulness isn't about being Zen. It's about creating space to honor our emotions without being consumed by them. After years of advocating for marginalized communities across Hong Kong, Glasgow, and Los Angeles, Nina realized her depth of feeling, once called a weakness, was actually her superpower. It allowed her to connect deeply and serve others with empathy. Today, as a certified mindfulness coach, she blends academic research, Buddhist wisdom, and lived experience to help highly sensitive people, HSPs, thrive. Nina specializes in helping sensitive souls reclaim their sensitivity as strength, no more shame or hiding, navigate life's transitions with mind body tools, no bulldozing through, and design lives where their gifts flourish without burnout. The world needs the depth, empathy, and finely tuned wisdom that HSPs bring, and Nina is here to help them own their power. So I'm very happy to welcome Nina Müller. So, hello, my friend. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I am so excited to chat with you today. I just filled in my audience on a bit of your background. I read them your bio. And I am a fellow sensitive soul. I really feel that I am. I don't know to what level because I've never like assessed it or thought about it really, but I know just through therapy and stuff, like I can be very sensitive. I can be very emotional. Not that that's a bad thing, but I know things affect me pretty deeply. I definitely absorb other people's energy and emotions and stuff. So I really relate to a lot of what you were saying. But I just love how your approach to helping highly sensitive women navigate life's transitions with more ease, more grace, more self-trust. Like that's amazing. And so for listeners out there who are tuning in today, if you've ever felt like your emotions were like, quote unquote, too much, or that you just couldn't keep up with that hustle culture of business that we, are constantly bombarded with, this episode is for you. So, Nina, where are you joining us from today? Tell us a little bit about your business and your background.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Alicia. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on today. I am a fan of the podcast, and I
Oh,
found,
yay!
yeah, I found it very helpful as a solopreneur. I like finding out from other women what their approaches are and what they've been going through. So it's really cool. And I am in Los Angeles right now. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where I'm based. That's where my business is based, although it's all online. And I did grow up in Switzerland. So I've been
Mm-hmm.
here in Los Angeles for almost 7 years now. Um,
Okay.
and I am a mindfulness coach. I taught mindfulness for almost 15 years now. I've been teaching mindfulness kind of as a side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
I was advocating for people with disabilities. It was my day job. And then I got a certificate in coaching. And now I am full-time into my business and I coach mindfulness.
Amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, let's start right there then. Let's set the foundation. What is mindfulness to you? And what are some maybe common misconceptions that people might have about that topic? Like break down what mindfulness is.
Yeah, that's a great question actually, because I do have a Master's of Buddhist Studies from the University of Hong Kong. So when you
Mm-hmm.
look at it academically, mindfulness can get very kind of tricky because there's a huge tradition in Asia of mindfulness and of different types of Buddhism, and they might explain mindfulness a little differently. But for the purpose of today and of what the work that I do and what everyday people will be coming across the term mindfulness is a good definition for it is really it's the awareness that arises when you purposefully pay attention to the present moment,
Hmm.
non-judgmentally.
Mm-hmm.
I love that piece about non-judgmentally because we've all experienced mindfulness. You know, we're getting kind of far away from that in today's society just because of social media and how fast-paced that culture is. And so a lot of us, our attention is sort of all over the place. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think all of us would recognize moments where we've been very mindful, where we've sort of felt ourselves just in the present, noticing what's going on, our own internal experience. So that could be feelings, thoughts, emotions as well as sort of where we are, really taking in our surroundings and what's happening around us. And I love the piece about non-judgmentally because often
Mm-hmm.
where I got stuck a lot, and it's very common for anyone, getting into mindfulness or meditation. Um, it's easy to think that you're supposed to feel calm all the time, or
Mm-hmm.
that it's about being a specific way, being Zen. But actually, the non-judgmental piece is really it's about just being who you are in that moment. And,
Mm-hmm.
strong feelings of anger, of anxiety, that's all okay. It's all allowed. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just when you can bring that attention of accepting that and allowing those things to be as they are, it can open up it's just that awareness is just, you feel it. You sense it when you're there. It's just, you're able to act from a place of much more openness. And
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, and I think in my own personal experience and with the clients that I work with, a lot of us do feel like we don't have time for mindfulness. But
Mm-hmm.
what I'm noticing is, when you practice it and you get used to being in that place more and more, you make much better decisions. You're more in touch with your values. So, you're not likely to get more as carried away as some of us get. I'm one of those people as well. I can get carried away by
Mm-hmm.
in one moment and then realize, oh, why why did I put
Mm-hmm.
into that? So it's a very valuable tool to have that I think humans have naturally, and many different religious traditions have some kind of practice that encourages mindfulness. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, does
It's
that
funny. Yeah, it's funny too because I was gonna say there is kind of the pressure these days to, like you said, be calm all the time, stay calm, be calm, be calm, be calm. Find your zen and all of that. And that's all well and good, but also like we have a right to feel our feelings. It's important to do that. And to, help process whatever is happening. Um, and of course, like I'd like the goal to be calm, but it's a practice, like what you're calling it. It's a practice. It's not just something that, boom, it's done. It's something you have to learn. You have to work at it. And the non-judgmental piece, that is hard for me because I'm my biggest judge, right? We're all our biggest critics most of the time. We give each other so much crap or we give ourselves so much crap about, we're not doing this right. Or, like, for example, a couple episodes ago, I had someone on who was teaching us a little bit about meditation. And some of the feedback I had gotten after folks had listened to that episode was like, I felt like I wasn't doing it right. And it was kind of like, giving yourself the grace of there's no right or wrong way to do this. But it's what you just said. It's just about being who you are. And trying not to judge yourself, so harshly. So I appreciate you calling that out. Um, when you talk about I love how your website says this, and you also had put it in your bio about um, sensitivity in business, that it could actually kind of be like a superpower and not a setback. And I just want to hear so much about that. Like, I want to understand what you mean by that. For folks who are struggling, who feel like they're extremely sensitive, and maybe it's throwing up some obstacles in their day to day of running a business, or marketing themselves, talking about what they do. Something I get a lot from my students is, well, I don't really want to talk about my business. I don't want to put it out there because I'm afraid of what my family might say, or I'm afraid of what, people I went to high school with a million years ago might say about my business. They're pre-feeling judgment that they think is going to come, whether it comes or not. And I just wonder, when they're feeling like that, when they're feeling that sensitivity, how can they realize that it's actually a gift? Like, how can that sensitivity help them in their business?
Wow, great. And there's so many different kind of aspects to that. And first of all, so interesting to hear that you also identify as being highly sensitive.
I do.
Yeah. Um, and so
I know that was kind of a rambly question, but
No, yeah, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense because it's something that a lot of us battle with, no matter where we are on the sensitivity level. And
hmm
the first thing that comes to mind is again, I want to be mindful of being uh, aware and kind of loving towards those parts that are scared. So
mm,
we don't want to banish that kind of voice that says, "Oh, what about my friends from high school? What will they think? What about my family?" There's reasons why parts of us react like that. Maybe in the past it wasn't safe for us to show up as who we truly are. So we've kind of internalized ways of protecting that and of not allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. So I do, when I work with clients, I really check in, kind of try and get to know that part, like what are they scared of and what do they need to feel a little safer. And you could do that through journaling. Like you could just journal and kind of, just get it out there, get it out on paper. What's
hmm
scary about it? And then, you could do it talking to a friend, or some people use voice messages, or in a coaching session, or therapy if it's kind of deeper wounds that you have. And get to really know and understand, but just really hear like, okay, well, what's the fear there? And often once you get it out, you realize it's kind of reassuring yourself that, oh, I'm not in danger anymore.
mm,
Because our nervous systems are always picking up on cues of what might put us in danger and what we need to look out for. So, that's kind of how a lot of us develop, especially a lot of us who are very sensitive. We've had to be very careful about those signals. And so again, we can honor them and just recognize that they're there. And then get curious about what you've come this far in your life and all of us have done pretty cool things. And often when you kind of look back on that, you might notice, oh, that actually was the sensitive part of me that helped me get to that. Like if I
mm,
think about myself, I struggled, working here in the States as a advocate for people with disabilities. It was very kind of huge caseloads, and you're going from one person to the next really quickly. And I did struggle with that. On the other hand, I was able to connect with a lot of people that so many of my colleagues weren't, because I was able to really sit with them and take the time with them and really feel what they were going through deeply, and it just helped open them up. So I
mm,
managed to sustain in an industry that was actually quite hard for me, but the very reason why I sustained, I think, was my sensitivity.
hmm
Does that make
hmm
sense?
It does. And I pulled up this quote just now on your site because I loved what it said. You said society often mistakes this for being shy, needy, or overreacting. The truth, your sensitivity is a gift. It lets you detect subtleties others miss and feel life's textures intensely, both the beautiful and the challenging. I just loved how you said that because it's exactly what you're saying. You were able to pick up on, spend a lot of deep time, with these folks and pick up on some of the deeper kind of subtle things going on that actually lead to more clarity, a better result, more help. And I just love the reframe of like, oh, this isn't a problem. I can actually recognize that this is a gift. I have something that other folks can't tune into. And it's just like my default setting, like go me. That's great. So I love that. Um, what would you say about, you know, um, maybe some of the common challenges that some sensitive women might face when building a business, like when they're trying to just put themselves out there, or maybe deciding how to tell their story, maybe deciding where to start on a task or a project. Like, I feel like for me, there's a lot of internal kind of self-talk and self-motivation that has to happen for me to like do the thing, because my brain is a little racy of like, putting, what am I trying to say? Almost like I put the result, I predict the result before the thing actually happens. I'm kind of like, talking myself out of something. because I'm a little too sensitive about how it might go or might not go. Um, and I just wonder if there's some common threads that pop up with when you're working with clients on some, what some of those challenges might be that come up all the time.
Yeah, so I would say when it comes to having a business and getting the word out there, there's a lot of messaging out there that doesn't necessarily apply to people who are really sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. In terms of you want to have all the social media, you want to, get your Instagram, get your TikTok, get all these things. And I think because we tend to focus quite easily on tasks, but then it's hard for us to switch from one task to another,
Yeah, so hard.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's okay to set times in the day where you're just focusing on one thing or even a whole day. Like, I think for me personally, when I first started my business, I kind of felt like I had to go, go, go. And then I realized
Mm-hmm.
when I stopped taking in that messaging and was like, but that's not how I work. And just gave
Mm-hmm.
myself, okay, this is a day where I'm working on my website. To me, that was so freeing because, and people are different, it might be somebody needs an hour or but for me, I really, I say embrace the slowness. If your nervous system is telling you, I want to go slower with it, kind of, I think you can embrace that and just trust that often you'll end up doing it really well because
Mm.
because you do tend to think things very deeply, and we're thinking all those steps through, like how are people going to respond and like what's it going to look like. And so kind of trust yourself with that while also not, that's where mindfulness, an actual practice, physical practice comes in handy because then trying not to get too caught up in the fear either. Because some of the
Mm-hmm.
fear is unreasonable. I mean, we are going to have to put ourselves out there as solopreneurs and entrepreneurs. But I think that's one way that's helpful. And another way is I think I found people that I trust has been very helpful. So to partner with and to collaborate with. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, you helped me with the marketing side of things. And I think for me, that was really, I was getting a vibe from you probably of you being sensitive and you know,
Mm-hmm.
not being pushy. I've had a lot of people try work with me who have been very pushy. And initially I might have started the work and then something in me's been like, no, but it's too fast. They're expecting me to go at a pace that I can't go at. And
Mm-hmm.
listening to that and saying, no, that's not for me. And it's gonna be for other businesses. We're all different, right? But really
Mm-hmm.
finding people that kind of has similar sensitivities to you and feeling when that feels right for you and kind of act
Mm-hmm.
that instinct. And then you create a group, around you. So you surround yourself with a group of people who share the same values, work at a similar pace, and you can pick their brains and they'll help you out. You'll help them out. And it generally tends to be quite genuine. And that's
Mm-hmm.
great in terms of business growth.
Yeah. So, talking about finding your voice as a business owner, kind of embracing uh, who you are, embracing your brand, your point of view, your audience. You had mentioned that you were feeling inspired to find your voice and embrace all of that more fully. So, can you kind of share what shifted for you there? Because I know you recently went through a website update, and you're changing some of your messaging and putting some new stuff out. So, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was a little, marketing is new to me, and it's not really something I'm used to. So I was a little stuck in terms of how do I've got over a decade of mindfulness teaching kind of informally. I'm now
Mm-hmm.
a mindfulness coach. I do a lot of writing around mindfulness and Buddhism, and I was struggling to kind of put that into words and make it cohesive. And then that's when I came across you and the work that you do. And it was so cool because you and so first of all, I think we mentioned earlier, I am quite independent. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying the learning how to make my website, learning how to market. These are all things that keep me very engaged in the business. At the same time, we can't do everything alone. And so,
Sure.
yeah. So, again, I loved from point one, I loved It's funny because a lot of people who were reaching out to me in marketing, and you didn't reach out to me, I just found you, but they're very kind of corporate men in business suits, which already,
Hmm.
fair enough, but it's not really my thing. So I loved you, how you present the colors in your website, how even in your messaging, you really talk like yourself. And even just acknowledging that kind of made me think, hey, I'm responding to this person just being themselves. Like
Hmm.
that's something that's attracting me. So we had an empower hour. You were so prepared. You had gone over all of my websites, my LinkedIn. You had so many actionable tips. Um, and it kind of just gave me so much advice that I could just then take on and do as I wished, you know? So that was so helpful. And then I know you said something to me along the lines of who my ideal client is and who is my messaging for.
Hmm.
Because I come from the kind of more social work environment, advocacy environment, I'm used to dealing with anyone who turns up. And so that's kind of who I was marketing to. Like, well, anyone
Hmm.
with mindfulness can work with me. But as you asked that and you kind of asking me who I've really enjoyed working with, and you also mentioned how if we put out if we're pretending to be someone else or trying to put out
Mm.
a message for everyone, we're not going to attract the people that we really want to hang out with and be working with.
Hmm.
And that really kind of hit me hard because I looked back at the people that I've been working with and most of them it's been a perfect fit. And some of them maybe, it wasn't really for them the way that we worked. And that's when I noticed, well, a lot of them are women or they identify as women and they like me they tend to be more sensitive and they're not into hustle culture. They're fed up with being told that they need to do everything perfectly all the time, to be doing, and they're kind of feeling like they're detached from their values, and that's really where I sort of really embraced that. Oh no, it's okay. I'm working with people who have similar struggles to me,
Mm.
and that's that's who I'm speaking to. That's who I need to speak to. And it was like a light bulb moment. Suddenly, my website, I knew exactly what I was going to say. I was able to draw from, proper experiences that I've had with people. Um, and it's given me, I mean, I haven't done it yet, but it's given me so many ideas for a newsletter, which you had suggested start.
Mm.
Not there yet, but suddenly all these topics of blogs have come up for me because it's like it's not just about mindfulness. Mindfulness is such a broad subject. It's mindfulness for people who are very sensitive and who are going through changes. And it's like because I'm drawing on my life and these are my people, these things just come naturally to me. It's just really all fell into place.
Hmm. I love this so much because I've said this before, how very, very, not always, but very, very often our ideal client is ourselves a couple years ago, or ourselves just a little bit behind where we are right now. And it's not always the case, but so often we start our business or we make our product or we make our course or whatever because of something we went through or something we struggled with and we figured out or unlocked or created something that um we're now able to see how we can help others with that. And so exactly what you just said. You're like, I'm this type of person. I struggle with these things. This is who I want to talk to and who I want to work with because I know exactly what they need. I know exactly what works, what doesn't work. I know how to talk to them. I know how to relate to them and empathize with them and let them know that I know exactly how to help. So I love that. And of course, like on a personal note, I'm so happy that you and I connected. And you were able to uh, shift things and, kind of look at it through a specific lens. And then when you're doing that, you're able to then know how to write something, how to say something, how to design something, or, whatever that follows that kind of desired end result for that specific person. Um, And, it's a little nerdy, like we're reverse engineering stuff a little bit. Um, but but yeah, like it's kind of giving you a structure in a way, a structure to follow, a pathway. So I love, love, love that has been helpful for you. And of course, the Empower Hour session, which I actually talked about in the beginning of this episode before I welcomed you into Zoom, because I feel it's related to what we're talking about on this session too. It's like just being able to have some FaceTime, detangle some stuff, talk through when, you just need that clarity or you need a second set of eyes, a little brainstorming, a little guidance. That's what I'm here for. That's what they're here for. Similar to what you were talking about with your connection call. They're very flexible, and they're really helpful. So, I'm so glad that we were able to do that together. And thank you for sharing about your experience. That really means a lot. And I'm so happy because your website looks great. Everything is sounding great, looking great. But I loved how, it's like I was launching my next session of the mini mind experience, and I had sent you like, hey, like this is going, like if you want to check it out, and you knew yourself so well and you were like, I love this, but this isn't a great fit for me because I tend to work best independently. And like you knew that was just like not your vibe. And I loved that. I loved that because I think I know I have fallen into this trap too, where I am trying to um uh fit someone else's model or expectation or speed or path, like what you were saying before. Some of these things that we hear about running our business don't necessarily apply to HSPs. We have to find our own footing, our own way. And I think sometimes people are trying to fit someone else's mold, and it ends up not being great. It not ends up not being like a great experience. So I think that's key as well because I know too. Like I've heard this how, and I've felt this myself, um, business owners, especially now with everything going on, you just might feel sometimes just overstimulated, you're drained, you have to like create content, you have to be visible, you've got to hustle, all of this kind of crap. And I just wonder, how can we be a business owner and show up for our business and for our clients um, while protecting ourselves from burnout? And I know like we're gonna do a little mindfulness exercise in a couple minutes, which I'm excited to get to. But can you talk a little bit about just the general, I guess, awareness or feeling to carry through your life to be that kind of protection for yourself?
Yeah. And I kind of I want to acknowledge that what you said about my response to your invitation to join your group. And the reason why is because I felt so warm inside when you said that. And and yeah, and there's a part of me that still felt a little ashamed, when I'm like, oh, I can't work in groups. I don't work as well in groups as other people. And so soak that in when you find people who, like you're telling me, no, I respected that. You know yourself so well. And it's like, yeah, that's okay. I can show up as who I am and people will see that and people will be
Totally.
okay with it, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong about the way we are. So yeah, so thank you for saying that. And that's how you meet your people too, by just
Mm-hmm.
being yourself, which is something that you taught me when we were talking
Yes.
about marketing. You want to speak to your people, you can't speak to everyone.
Yes.
But
Yep.
I think you were talking a little bit about having that, you were asking about how do you cultivate kind of more of a sense of mindfulness and groundedness, just that can
Mm-hmm.
kind of last you throughout the day. And is what
Yes.
you were saying, asking. Yeah, so it's very different from person to person, right? I mean, I started meditating about 20 years ago, but my journey has taken me all sorts of places. I started out with a very formal meditation practice, and then I went through moments where I was struggling to sit with a meditation, and so
Hmm.
doing more movement-based practices. Um, so like kind of like yoga, but more like mindful yoga movement. There's body scan meditations. You can do walking meditation. So, I mean, the cool thing about the society we live in now, although it can be overwhelming, there are so many resources out there. And that's what I tell my clients too. You don't have to be married to a specific kind of mindfulness practice. There are so many
Hmm.
diverse cultures and backgrounds that are putting things out there, free things online that you can go to. And it could be, if your vibe is being just yourself, you sit for half an hour, great. If that's not going to work for you and you're not going to be able to be consistent, that's fine. It might be getting a nap with a little guided meditation that's 5 minutes long. It might not
Hmm.
even be a guided meditation, right? I mean, one of my practices for a while when I was feeling quite anxious and very stressed I had my side hustle as a meditation teacher and then I was working full time. And yeah, I get it. A lot of us don't have time to, sit down and meditate for ages. So at one point, the small thing I was doing was I would stand outside in the grass with my bare feet in the morning and just intentionally take in my environment, just a minute. I would do that. And then before visiting any clients, I would make sure in the car to just take another 1 or 2 minutes of mindful breathing, or again, depending on what I was in the mood for. Mindful breathing, sometimes it would be a guided meditation. So you can make kind of tiny, small changes like that. Another
Hmm.
thing is for some people, it might be a group. It might be going to a meditation class once a week, and that's it. And I wouldn't put
Hmm.
much pressure on yourself. Now I have to meditate every day and such and such. No, bit by bit, these things, our nervous systems soak that in. You know, our beings want more of that. So as long as you're intentionally giving time and attention to moments of that, bit by bit, you'll start opening up and seeing opportunities for more and just start integrating it more in your daily life.
I love this because as you're talking, I'm like, wait, am I doing mindfulness this week and not knowing it? Because this is what happened to me. I, um, last week, it was just like crazy. I had a workshop, I had all this stuff going on, and it went really well. But by the end, I was just so tired and beat, and I was just like, oh my God, like I need to go on vacation. This was a lot of work. Um, but the next morning, I did something that, for whatever reason, I never do, which is I made my coffee. I live in an apartment, but I made my coffee and I went and sat on my outside steps, like on the stoop, in the morning. And it was like a little chilly out, and I had my shoes off, I had my coffee, and that was it. I had no phone. I had no, nothing. And I just was sitting on the step, like actually paying attention to the breeze, the sounds, the smell of the fresh air, like all of that different kinds, drinking my coffee. And it was just like 15, 20 minutes, but it was so nice because I never do that. And it was the simplest freaking thing. So then I did it two more times that week. And each time I did it, I'm like, why don't I do this every day? Like, I can do this almost every day, probably. And now, as you're talking, I'm like, oh, I actually think that was like my version of a little mindfulness practice where I was just like paying attention to, the environment, nature, people walking by with their dogs, like just like being outside. So I love that it can be as simple as that, I guess.
Yeah, that's it, Alicia. That's exactly it. And then I noticed something. So one of the things, and you pointed to it earlier on, that sensitive people we can be very critical of ourselves, very
Hmm.
critical and very hard on ourselves. I imagine a lot of people can relate to that. And so
Sure.
I already heard in what you were saying there. So you did something wonderful for yourself. You sat out there, you took it all in, and then this voice popped up telling you, "Hey, I could do this every day. Why aren't I doing this almost every day?"
Oh my God, you're right.
It's fine, just being aware of it.
Hmm.
And one thing I would suggest, and you can see if it fits for you, and again, for HSPs, it tends to be helpful. We respond much, much better to positive
Oh
encouragement.
yeah.
So
Yes.
then negative, right? So what I would do is instead of focusing on when you're not doing it, whenever you do it, just thank yourself afterwards. You just take a moment to thank
Mm.
yourself, and then and you'll see bit by bit it will start becoming more of a habit because you love yourself for it rather than admonishing yourself when you don't do it.
You are so right, and thank you for that. That's like such a good um thing to be aware of because I didn't even realize that I did that. And that's the thing, like you're so used to criticizing yourself that you don't even like know when it's happening. And you're 1,000% right about the compliment or like the positive feedback or the positive response because there's this hilarious meme I saw online the other day that said, um, "Oh, when I asked for feedback, I meant you could give me a compliment." I was like, "Yeah, that's what I meant. That's perfect." Um, so talking about, a mindfulness practice, I would love to try something together if you'd be willing, to walk us through maybe a very simple, quick mindfulness practice that listeners can try, that maybe could help them when they're feeling overwhelmed or maybe overstimulated during the workday or whatever you think. I'd love to try something with you.
Yeah, great. So maybe we'll do one where we can just do, it doesn't have to be too formal, just sitting on your chair, ideally
Mm-hmm.
with feet on the ground, and just like it's just sitting meditation. So I think it'll be helpful for everything we're talking about because it's really just taking a moment to be in our sense of being rather than in the doing mode on autopilot, thinking about the next thing. So this
Mm-hmm.
is a good 5 minute or so meditation to do just to give our nervous system that kind of rest that is looking for. Um,
Great.
so beginning just sitting down comfortably and you can keep your eyes open or closed, whatever's most comfortable for you. And just generally getting a sense of arriving in the body in this place. Perhaps taking a few deeper breaths to help us feel settled and grounded. And feeling the feet supported by the ground and beneath it the earth. And getting a sense of the earth, vast and ancient, holding us. Letting the feet know that now there's nowhere to go. Becoming aware of the hands, where they are resting, what they're touching, air, skin, clothes. What's the energy of the hands like? Are they still expecting to do something? Letting the hands know that now nothing needs to be done. Becoming aware of the face, letting the face know that now there is nothing to communicate and nothing to hide from the world. Becoming aware of the belly, letting it be soft and get on with the business of digesting. It knows what to do. Allowing a sense of belonging without needing to do anything to prove your worthiness. And sensing that just like the trees, the ocean, and the sky, you belong here, just as you are. And as we close out this meditation, just taking in the body as a whole, maybe wriggling your fingers and your toes, Gently taking in your surroundings as you open your eyes.
That was great. Ready for a nap now. That was great. And I have to tell you, I don't know if the mic picked it up, but now is the time that the apartment landscapers guys decided to mow the lawn and do the weed whacking outside my window. But
Typical.
we'll see. But so first, very calm, very relaxed, very aware of the feeling of my feet, of my fingers, of my butt, of my shoulders, the whole thing. Um, and I loved how at different stages during it, you were allowing the specific parts of ourselves to rest. Like you're telling it, you don't have anything to worry about right now. You don't have a job to do right now. And something about that was very um relieving, like very calming, very like, okay, like my fingers don't have to write something right now or type something. My feet don't have to walk anywhere. I loved what you said about um the face, like the mask that we wear in our life doesn't need to be on right now. There's nothing to react to, there's nothing to do. Um, I loved that. That was so great. And what I noticed was as I was sitting in silence, and by the way, if you're listening to this, hopefully you're not driving on that practice that we just did.
Good.
But but as I'm listening to you guide us through that, I'm feeling not only my breath, but I'm feeling my pulse. Like I can feel like my heartbeat. I can feel like the blood pumping like in my fingertips or in my toes. Um, as my eyes were shut, I was like kind of seeing like colors like in my in the insides of my eyelids. I just feel very um much more present, which I guess is the whole point of just grounding yourself and being aware of where you are in the moment. Like even at the very end when you said, okay, like we're opening our eyes, like we're becoming aware of our environment. And I'm just sitting here in my home office, but I'm okay, I'm sitting here in my home office. I'm taking a minute to like be aware of exactly where I am. Um, that was great. That was wonderful. Thank you for leading us through that. And I think, just taking those couple minutes during when you're listening to this episode, or if you want to come back to this episode and listen to it again, to that portion, can be so helpful. I would imagine that any time of day, not just, in the morning when you're starting, but maybe in the afternoon on your coffee break, at at night as you're getting ready for bed. Um, I just see how that can be a nice little, very easy reset and like touching base with ourselves kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful, Alicia. And thanks so much for sharing your experience and for, really doing it and showing up with me. And I would say, so you're clearly someone who has a lot of insight into, you're able to really describe what
Hmm.
was going on. And that's great. I mean, I think mindful practices will probably do come quite easily to you. It's
Hmm.
beautiful to hear you describe that and how you really went along with it. And I would say not everybody takes to it that easy, and that's fine. You know, I find those short exercises very helpful too. They ground me in the moment and they help me feel more present. But I can get stuck in a loop where I then, if I don't feel present one day, I'm suddenly thinking, well, there's no point in that practice anymore. I'm giving that up. And
Hmm.
I've had to train myself, and I speak to my clients about this too. I kind of mindfulness practice is good to see it as any kind of exercise, physical exercise, right? Often when we go for a run or we do a dance or whatever it is we're doing, we do feel pretty good afterwards. But it's not always the case. And also, we don't see a lot of the results. Like if we're looking to lower our blood pressure or we're just looking to get stronger, we're not going to notice that after after doing it
Hmm.
once or twice. It's really takes weeks or months. And the meditation and mindfulness is similar. So we can get very hard on ourselves about not doing it right or not doing it often enough. But as long as you're showing up, like you, Alicia, showed up so beautifully and you did it and you were there. And, no matter how that specific experience goes for us, just trust that the more time you give yourself, in whatever form it is, to practice that, the more it'll become natural and the more you will feel over time a sense of groundedness and resourcefulness.
I get that 100% because I am by no means an expert in this at all, but I can tell you the very first time I tried meditating, I tried listening to a mindfulness practice on Spotify. This was a couple years ago. Um, it was before I started my therapy journey. I struggled with it in the beginning because it was hard for me to I honestly, if I'm being honest, it was hard for me to be vulnerable to myself. It was hard for me to just trust and try something because I was so judgy about it in the beginning. I was so much like, I don't get this. I'm not like feeling something or whatever. Even if I was, I like told myself I wasn't. And, I didn't give it a chance in the beginning because I feel like, I don't know, I wasn't ready or something. But then as I started going through my therapy journey, which has been one of the best things I've ever done in my life, um, I became much more comfortable with, yeah, being vulnerable, giving things a try, getting more in touch with myself, um, becoming more aware, becoming more like, if I'm upset about something, like understanding why am I actually upset? What's the thing behind, the actual outburst or tears or whatever? Because it's never the physical thing that's happening. It's like the feeling behind it. So becoming more aware about all of that has helped me as I've explored meditation, mindfulness, journaling, and such. And it's crucial that you're calling it a practice because that's how it feels to me. Like I've gotten better with it and have benefited more from it the more that I practice it. And that's still with me. I don't do it every day. I don't even do it every week. But when I do it and I am, intentional about it, I get so much more out of it. So it's like for those listening, it's about being open to it. It's not about right or wrong or, doing it, you know, the best way or the wrong way or whatever the thing is, but just being open to it without judgment. And I know it's easier said than done, but I'm here to say that it has gotten better and easier the more that I've done it.
Lovely.
I
And
love
what have
that.
you noticed over time as it's become more of a practice?
I've noticed, honestly, giving myself more grace, being nicer to myself, um, has been a very big thing for me personally. Um, and a lot of it comes down to, and I've shared this in some other episodes, how I remember like the kid inside me and I want to take care of her. I want to help her. I want to calm her. Um, and I have a framed picture of myself on my desk when I was like 3 or 4. And I keep that on my desk because she's my creative director, and she's my life coach. And so, I'm going to be turning 43 in July, and I started therapy at 39. It's also when I got diagnosed with ADHD, which has explained my whole life, but that's another story. And I really am proud of myself with not being as critical as I was years ago and not being as just harsh and negative, and all that stuff. Um, it sounds simple, but one of the biggest and best things that I learned in therapy, but also in exploring mindfulness, exploring meditation, exploring even self-care, to put an even broader, point on it. One of the biggest and most helpful things is tomorrow is a new day. Like the storm always ends, and like that has been honestly life-changing because when we're stuck in a moment or we're stuck in like the mud, it's hard to see how it's going to get better. Like even what you were saying before, like when you're struggling with certain practices, you're like, "Ugh, this isn't worth it. I'm not going to do this one anymore." Like even you yourself, who's an expert in this, you still have those moments of this.
Oh yeah.
Um, and yeah, I just think, we have those days where you're just like, it's not worth it. Like I'm closing my business, I'm never gonna get another client, all of that stuff. Um, and most of the time, I feel so much better the next day. Or, I feel so much better after I do a mindfulness session or I meditate or I journal and just get it out of my brain. I just led a workshop last week on ChatGPT. Use ChatGPT as your journal. If you don't have a journal, just talk into ChatGPT. It'll give you a pep talk. It's great. Um, but yeah, like I just know I believe in this. I know that it works. And it is my intention to do more of it, to implement, more of this into my just daily life because I truly can see how it helps me, even if it's helping me just in a moment, to calm down, to feel more present, like what we were just saying before. And I think too, like you were saying in the beginning, um, that you hear, okay, mindfulness, you hear meditation, you hear these terms, and you're like, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to slow down. I don't have time to pause. Um, and I think we do. And even if it's just for a couple minutes like this, like it's going to benefit your day. It's going to benefit your insides. So I'm a believer. Like I feel that it's just something to try. Give it a shot. And so talking about your work and how you support your clients, um, could you tell us a bit about what coaching looks like when it's rooted in mindfulness and sensitivity? Like, how does that differ from maybe, traditional coaching or something like that? Like, what's how you approach things differently is my point. So, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I do. And I mean, by no means am I the only one. There's a whole movement in coaching that's kind of more focusing on transformational coaching rather than outward action kind of
Mm-hmm.
steps. A lot of traditional coaching, life coaching, as you would think of it, and again, it has its place. I mean, there's definitely a point to it, and but it's often very corporate, working with a lot of people in kind of high up positions, who want to achieve, who are high achievers, and who have a specific time frame in which they need to get something done. And it can be quite, you ask a lot of questions during the coaching, you kind of help them come up with very actionable steps. Sorry. And that's something that definitely, yeah, comes in handy sometimes. But what I noticed for myself, and I've had therapy myself, I've had coaching myself, so I've experienced it myself too. I've been on the receiving end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't work well when I'm in a therapy session that's moving fast or a coaching session that's moving fast.
Mm-hmm.
I easily get carried away by other people's agendas, or I freeze up. And so I could spend an hour doing a session that actually wasn't really about me, or I didn't really get into what was important to me at that time. So I was lucky, very early on, I came across some great mindfulness teachers and coaches and worked with therapists who have mindfulness training. And I always found, and it's, just doing an exercise like what we did a few moments ago at the beginning of the session, um, for me, it just helps me get into the coaching situation and connect with the person that's opposite me. So whether it's my coach or my client. And then it just allows us to feel safe in that space. And often something comes to the fore about what we've
Mm,
got on our plate and what really needs to be addressed in that moment. Because a lot of us, we're dealing with so many problems at the same time, right? We've got work, we've got romantic relationships, family, we've got all sorts of things going on. So I think it really helps to ground you in the moment to figure out, okay, what's at the top for me today that I really want
mm,
addressing. And then, another thing that I'll do a lot in my coaching is get really curious about people's physical sensations in the moment.
mm,
So, if you're feeling anxious about something, ask them, where are you feeling that in your body? And it'll be different for different people. Anxiety is maybe often around the chest, but it can vary. And then as you tap into that, often again, more things come to the fore that you might, if you hadn't taken the time to slow down and really check in with that part of you, you might kind of just brush past it. Um, but that really helps you again to dig into, like what you were saying, Alicia, like, what is this emotion really about? What's going on there? What does it
mm,
feel like? What else? What other images and things are coming? And it just brings so much into, a coaching session where I feel like, in an hour or even less, you can really get to the core of a person and
mm-hmm,
show up really show up vulnerably. And Yeah, I mean, another thing that we might do is for some people it's scary to even just for HSPs again, it might be a little scary to talk things out loud with somebody, especially if you're just getting to know your coach. So
mm-hmm,
sometimes, and I mean, you mentioned ChatGPT. ChatGPT is great at coming up with journaling prompts as a coach,
mm-hmm,
same, and we can just, set a bit of time aside, 5 minutes. I'll write along with them. They'll write their bit, I'll write my bit. And then, they get to pick which part of their writing stands out to them, which part they're comfortable sharing with me. So it gives people a choice to kind of really be intentional about what they're bringing to the session. Um,
mm. I like that. I like that it's interactive where you're doing it with them. That's cool. That's different. And I love too that, yeah, like when you were saying earlier, this session wasn't for me, or I didn't get to talk about what I wanted to talk about, or I didn't relate to this, or, I feel rushed through this, conversation or whatever. I love that with your approach, like you're giving them the controls. You're giving them the choice. They can drive the car and decide where to go. So I love that. And I would imagine that that is just so freeing and helpful for your clients. And I'm wondering too, what types of life transitions do your clients usually come to you for support with? Like, what are some of the things that they're maybe struggling with?
yeah, it's all sorts. So it's moves. I think I attract a lot of people who are going through moves from, one state to another, one country to another, because I myself have moved around a lot. So I grew up in Switzerland, lived in Scotland, Hong Kong, Los Angeles. So I know a lot of people who are quite international, and then I think they
Mm-hmm.
more. And it can be easy to lose yourself when you're moving to a new culture or even a new state. So I think mindfulness can be really helpful and just checking back in with your values and opening up to new opportunities. Like you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
Elise, how tomorrow's a new day, right? So transitions they can be tough for HSPs like us because again, we're highly sensitive and routines can be very helpful for us to help us stay grounded. So when that gets messed up, we can maybe feel it a little deeper than other people. Um, so yeah, transitions like moving, that's something that where it comes really helpful, where mindfulness comes in very helpful. But then also things like relationship changes, again, sometimes people are rushed through the process of grieving, maybe you're going through a divorce or even I've worked with retirees who, you know, the children are still there, but they're empty nesters now. So this kind of changes their whole daily life and their purpose in life, gets kind of,
Yeah.
and so we'll really work on that and really honoring the loss because we are people who we dwell on that and we like to make meaning of that. And so it's really not getting too carried away into the, oh, I should be different. I should be loving this. I should be, embracing this new opportunity. But, being with what is in that moment, honoring that. And then again, that just opens up, you get a new curiosity and a new kind of openness to life and what's ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Careers is something that I help people with a lot. And I think especially people more in the healthcare industry, people who are in the helping professions. And again, that's just who I've come across in my professional life because that's what I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing. And I also have a very, that lived experience of how do you balance um, being a helper for someone and then also caring for yourself so that you're strong enough to show up at work, to show up
Mm-hmm.
when you're applying for a new job, a new opportunity. How do you navigate that without completely losing yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And again, by tapping into your strengths and I noticed that when the women I work with, when they take the time to slow down and to listen to those voices, often there's a lot of insight. I mean, the best coaching sessions, we're not really doing very much. You're really sitting back and you're looking at someone, you're just asking questions and helping them go deeper. And they do. These women, they have a lot of times the answers inside of them. We kind of often know actually what's best for us. It's just about removing the layers and the shoulds and the whatnots, what society's been telling us that we have to be and how we have to be. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. The shoulds are never ending. And that's a bad habit that so many of us have, and that's a tough habit to break. But um I love that you help guide them through that. And I'm not surprised by a lot of the struggles that they come to you with. And seeing how, this type of work can really, really help change their lives, for the better. And I so agree with what you said about grief. I had an episode several episodes ago with a grief coach, and we are talking about all the different ways that something can, or all the different things that you can grieve that are not just the death of a loved one. Like you said, it's moving, it's changing jobs, it's the end of a relationship, it's, all these different things, financial stuff, and I think it's so important to have support when you're going through something like that. So with the type of support that you offer, like I know you have the one-to-one coaching, you also offer workshops and you're writing articles, and putting out content to help others. Can you talk to us a little bit about the free connection call that you offer? Maybe someone out there is, they're loving this conversation. Maybe they're not sure where to start, or would this be a good fit for them? Talk to us a little bit about how they can get in touch with you and maybe explore working together.
Yeah, great. So I love free connection calls. I'm a person where when I'm looking at a coach for myself, I need that call because again, I'm not going to vibe with anyone. So
Hmm.
that's something where please never be worried about reaching out. That's what it's there for. It's very casual. We can do it over the phone or we can do it on Zoom, video, no video, whatever you prefer. And, it's really your chance to, ask me any questions you have about what I do, how I might be able to help. If you're comfortable, it's always great, if you can tell me a little bit about your situation. But again, not everyone feels comfortable, you might want to hear more about me first, and then we can
Hmm.
always schedule another connection call if we want to do it, then you tell me a little bit about yourself if you feel safer then. So yeah, we usually spend about half an hour answering any questions that you might have. And then, in these connection calls, it's also in all my jobs, I've always loved providing information to people and resources. And so I'm there for that too. So again, I work with women, so that's anyone who identifies as a woman. But if you have questions, you don't quite fit the bill, or even as we're talking, you realize, that might not be exactly what I'm looking for. That's fine. I really see these calls as making connections, and I have a lot of resources that I can provide you with, so to kind of help you signpost you in the right direction. And these calls, they take little, sometimes it's really just more of a question and answer. Sometimes people will want me to guide them through a little meditation. So
Mhm.
we do that to get curious about what might be helpful for you. Sometimes it does turn into a little bit of coaching already. So
Mm.
it's really very flexible and whatever you're comfortable with.
Cool. Awesome. Well, make sure if you're listening, check out the show notes because I'm going to link to all of Nina's stuff in there. We're going to link to her website, which is practicingminds.com. We're going to link to her LinkedIn page where she's very active. And also, she has a column on Buddhist Door. So, we're going to link to all of that in the show notes. So, be sure to get in touch with her there. And I've just loved this conversation so much. I think that the work that you do is so helpful, so important, and something that I have done it. I have seen how it helps me. Um, and I'm just excited to do more. I'm excited to incorporate that practice into my life, and come back to me, get back in touch with me, get back in touch with the kid that's inside me, like I was saying. um, and I just really believe that this is, as important as exercise and oxygen and food and shelter and all of those essentials. I believe this is right up there with that. So, any parting words for our fellow sensitive solopreneurs trying to do business in a noisy world and wearing all the hats and doing all the things?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And I would say just, embrace yourself. The world needs all sorts of people. And if you look back at your experiences, I'm sure there's been sensitive people out there that have really shown up for you and that have been really helpful. So just be confident in yourself and who you are, and that it might not be the mainstream way of being, but it's a great way of being, and the world needs more of it.
Mm, love it. Love
Mm.
it. Well, thank you so much for being here and chatting with me about all of this. And thank you so much for listening out there. And I will talk with you soon, my friend. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Alicia. Take care.
Take care.